Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Salem-Keizer Mass Transit District's Board of Directors meeting for February 27th, 2014. Tonight, we're going to start with two presentations, one from the Special Districts Association of Oregon, and the other will be an audit report from our auditor. Then we'll approve the consent calendar, which contains minutes from 4 different meetings that we've had since the last board meeting, as well as the minutes from our board retreat we had in January. We have 3 action items tonight. One is the courthouse square issues that we have to deal with. Another one is approval of the Special Transportation Fund Advisory Committee's recommendation for fund distribution. And the third is our comprehensive service analysis project change order number 1. We have one information item tonight, which is just adjusting a couple of the board assignments that we have. And we'll conclude with a number of various reports. So let's begin with it. We will call the meeting to order. And Linda, please note the attendance. And our Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be by Director John Hamill.
Please rise and join me as I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Any announcements or changes to the agenda?
You left out public comment.
Well, that's coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
We have presentations first. Announcement, any changes?
No.
Oh, okay. Presentations, first of all, we have Frank Stratton here from as the Executive Director of Special Districts.
You've said it all. Frank's here to present an award that the district received from the special district. So with that, Frank.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here today to present your award for an outstanding achievement. The Special Districts Association of Oregon is a statewide association of almost 900 special districts in the state, including all the transit districts except for TriMet. TriMet's a little too big to need an association, but we are very pleased to be here. We're very pleased to award this award to your district. The way it's chosen is we have an awards committee of people representing different types of districts from all over the state. They get together throughout the year, evaluate the applications, and yours was chosen. So congratulations to that. It's really a great project of what you put together. I live here in the community in Silverton, so I drive by the new transit center all the time, and it's really a fantastic piece of work. So congratulations. And we put together a video as well. I'm sorry no one was able to come to the conference to get your award then, but there was 6 inches of snow on the beach in Seaside, so there were a lot of people who didn't make it to the conference. And with that, we'll play the awards video, and then after that, I'll present you with the award.
In July 2013, Salem Area Mass Transit District officially opened their new transit center in the city of Keizer.
Constructing the Keizer Transit Center was about more than just getting the job done. It was about going above and beyond. It was about seeing how far we could stretch ourselves in terms of sustainability and in meeting our sustainability goals.
Described as a jewel of a project, the sustainably designed center reflects the district's strategic approach to transit service.
A very comfortable place for riders to come and congregate and wait for the bus. Restrooms are available, heat's available.
A sheltered passenger waiting area, a community room for people to meet, but also things for our own employees, so a driver break room, restrooms for our operators, and then a security room towards the back of the building. The security presence on the site is a great benefit to our riders, our operators, and our park and ride users.
It was really important for the district that people felt comfortable either driving a car here in the park and ride, walking here from the neighborhoods, or riding their bikes here. All these modes have been accommodated on this site.
Unlike most transit centers, the Keizer Transit Center was planned and designed to be a community learning tool and inspiration.
A lot of times you build a facility and there may be one sustainability element to it. Here there's a whole series of sustainability features. And what we wanted to do is, in working with our school district, we provide a lot of transportation for school kids going on field trips to different parts of the city. What we wanted to do is incorporate this facility as one of their field trips.
There's 3 plaques on the site that actually are very educational plaques talking about all the sustainable measures, whether that's about the water, how water works, the energy use. Actually, they even talk about how you can walk around the site and how many miles you put in for how many times you walk around the site while you're waiting for your bus.
A demonstration of sustainable building techniques and a center with low long-term maintenance costs for the district.
We created a vision with the district on how to get these sustainable measures implemented. So there's the photovoltaics. So we didn't just do photovoltaics on the roof. We did photovoltaics on the shelters too. These are bifacial photovoltaics, which means that you can see in the shelter, you can look up and you can see the photovoltaics, which is a great learning experience too. And with those PVs, we're finding out that they are really working. In fact, they're generating so much energy that the district is able to sell back energy to PGE. The plants that were chosen for the site are easy to maintain, but also they serve the purpose of cleaning the water as they go through the rain gardens.
We knew we wanted to have artwork in place on the site, and the artist we selected was David Boyer from Nevada. Part of the reason we selected him is he creates kinetic sculptures. The ones we have on this site in particular are wind-driven. So the wind-driven sculptures help to tie the environment to the site itself and make it present in the artwork.
Transit centers are a key element in the planned development and expansion of the district and service, helping make transit a more sensible, popular choice.
And with that, I'll present your award to the board chair. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well deserved.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Frank.
That's a nice looking award.
Okay, our next item is our audit report.
Great. Yeah, Jared Isaacson will introduce the audit team, and we will receive the report.
President Thompson and members of the board, I'd like to introduce Chuck Swank from Grove, Mueller & Swank.
Yeah, we've never met him before.
Thank you, sir. Hi, as Jared said, my name is Chuck Swank, representing the audit firm that did the audit for the year ended June 30, 2013. I have brought company with me tonight, both the audit partner and the manager on the engagement. They do the work, I get to do the talking. That's the way it's supposed to work, though. My real purpose to be here tonight for the board is if you have any questions concerning the audit. Now, I will spend a few minutes in the 3 documents that I believe they have all copies of all 3 documents that you received. Please, if you have questions, ask me, or if you have questions later, I'm not very hard to find. Jerry can find me all the time, so I can't be hard to find.
Run into him all the time.
Yeah. All right, I'll make this short because I know you're busy. Your financial statement itself, nice cover. I like that. This is the second year that you submitted this document meeting GFOA, or Government Finance Officers Association, requirements. I think it's a very nice looking document. Probably you didn't go look, but the first thing other people would look for is you got the award the first time you submitted it last year. That was the first submission, right?
Yes.
Yep. And so you get a copy of your submission for June 30, 2012. This document in itself has some information that should be useful to the board and other users. And I'll make a couple comments, and then, like I said, if you want more, you can tell me. You as a board are much more familiar with your budgetary financial information, as you should be, which starts on page 29, and you have your budgetary funds. And that information for the year ended June 30, 13 is embodied in those 4 pages. And to some of you, that may be the most important part of this document and the one you really care about, certainly the one the state of Oregon cares about. If you want to get to the forward part of the document, there's actually a tiny little reconciliation on page 33. There really aren't that many changes. It really just takes the 4 funds, combines them together, and adds some long-term assets and liabilities to produce a financial statement, both at a balance sheet level and an operating level, that shows the entire district as one unit. Now, that may not be the most useful thing in the world to you. Outside readers claim that's what they wanted to see, so you actually get both within the document. That would be the important things I would point out in there. Your management has taken time to introduce the document with both a transmittal letter and a management's discussion and analysis. You may not learn a whole lot as board members. I think you'll know most of it, but for an outside reader, it's pretty useful information. The other thing is the independent auditor's report, the one you really pay for, is unmodified. We don't call them unqualified anymore, we call them unmodified. There is no modifications to that report, and that report appears toward the front of the document. At the end of the document, first you'll find some statistical information, which you saw for the first time last year on a 10-year basis. All that's happened this year is 1 year's gone on top and a year's peeled off the bottom. But again, you get some interesting 10-year trend information on some financial and operating statistics of the district. So, and that it was a GFOA requirement, and it's, tells you some fairly useful information. The very last pages in the document are the report required by the state of Oregon. As a municipal corporation in Oregon, you have a bunch of rules and regulations you must follow, dictated and reported to the Secretary of State's Audit Division, and that report is contained on the very last 2 pages. So that is your financial statement. The second one I would point you to is your federal compliance report. Any government that receives more than $500,000, actually it spends more than $500,000 in a fiscal year, is required by law to undergo what's called a single audit. And you got some 11 million, glasses are necessary, 11,950,000, almost $12 million. So obviously you're subjected to the single audit. And that requires considerable extra testing on our part, a lot of reporting on your part, as far as tracing exactly all those federal dollars and how they were used, and were they used in accordance with the requirements when the federal government made those dollars available to you. That report's here. It has one finding in it, and it's in part about a subject we'll talk in a minute. Turnover in your finance department, and I think some other issues. The district encountered, and this is no secret to the board members, I encountered some really a shortage of manpower and expertise in the accounting function. Fair way to say that? And was not really able to get all the documentation schedules prepared on a timely basis. The feds have no sense of humor when it comes to keeping track of every one of their dollars, and I mean the term dollars. And so there is a finding about tracing and reporting all those federal dollars. Now, when we got done, the accuracy of this schedule, I think Jared will vouch for without doubt, but it took a while to get there, and that's part of the issue that the finding in here talks about. I talked to Alan just before we started to ask him how the search was going to get some accounting help. We're always advocates that people should have accounting help. And he said, you're interviewing in the next couple of weeks, so that should take some of the workload here and give him some help. The last document we issued is called a governance letter. Its real purpose is to communicate to you, the board of directors, what our responsibility is, what your responsibility is, and lay out in general terms how the audit went. If you take a look at that document, the first part is fairly straightforward. It notes that The auditors do special things related to certainly estimates and financial statements, implementation of new accounting standards. If you go a little deeper, it talks about a little bit of difficulties with the audit, and it talks about how many adjustments the auditors recommended to the financial staff in order to bring the financial statements into accordance with generally accepted accounting standards. That sort of was what I led into when I talked about the federal audit report. The same issues here, timing and getting the numbers together to the financial statements so they could be audited. And what happened was the district didn't have the availability of information completed at the time the audit was started, so there was a lot of adjustments made. And of course, when you make those kind of adjustments, they reflect on the accuracy of the original information, and they reflect on the timeliness and completeness of getting the audit done and presented to you. So that is the crux of that. There's a long list of journal entries attached, which probably isn't the most exciting thing you've ever read. I think the district is on the right track in making sure that they find the correct financial support as far as employment, and we wholeheartedly support that. And I really believe you can get on top and correct these errors on a very timely basis. When we reported the information, there was no pushback. The attitude of management was, we got to fix it. And from an audit standpoint, that's the kind of answer we want to hear. I would be more than glad to answer questions, or I can sit down and let you continue your meeting.
Any questions? Looks like you skated again.
Again, if anyone would have questions later, I'm very reachable, as are either one of these gentlemen. Alan knows how to get a hold of me. Jerry knows how to get a hold of me. Jared knows how to find us.
Yeah. Alan's got a comment.
I would just like to make a comment, thank Chuck and Ryan and Devin and the staff for working with us through some of these issues. It's a great partnership, and the whole goal is to make it right. So thank you very much for your work with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Okay, now we have public comment. And each person is allowed 3 minutes, and Linda will be the timekeeper. And there'll be, are you going to use the lights?
Yes.
Okay. There'll be a yellow and a red, and when you hit red, you're done. Okay, and first speaker today is Richard Stevenson. Do you have a mic over there? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everybody. I come to you today with a real heavy heart, and I'm sorry I have to come here. I am an ADA paratransit rider. On February 7th of this year, I was almost stranded at a doctor's office. And even though I told the person in TripLink, hey, my wheelchair can't go anywhere, if you don't get me, I'm stranded. I was 2 blocks away from where I was originally supposed to be picked up. And luckily, I knew where to call. Sue helped me out, and thank you very much for that. I was pretty upset that day. But how many of our riders know that? How many times do people have to call the Chariot's office, and how many times does the district want people to call their office when they're paying somebody else to take the calls? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense that the people who need the help the most are not being helped. You know, I've lived here 7 years. When I first moved here, the TripLink window was 15 minutes. It was 5 minutes before and 10 minutes after the scheduled ride. Not any time within a half hour. And I know we got a new phone system, and I hope that makes things more efficient, but I hope it doesn't make it more efficient without making it any better. So what I would suggest respectfully, because I really haven't seen the figures, is get rid of them. If we're contracting them and they're not doing the work, why do we continue to pay them? It doesn't make sense. I mean, if you had a painter came in and only painted half your house, would you have him paint the whole house? I sure wouldn't. the districts, every dollar is tax-based, and it's important to the district and to the taxpayers who support this district. And I'm sure that this is not the way that the board of directors wants them to conduct themselves. So why aren't they accountable? There's only two reasons. Number one, they don't care, or number two, they don't know any better. So, if we can't get rid of them, then we have to train them. But I would suggest that the original company we had 6 years ago is much better. They handle everything better, and I don't want to beat a horse to death, so here's what I suggest. Put your reservationists and your dispatchers in the same room, in the same open room. This way, Joe can't call John and have John put him on hold. Joe can walk over to John's desk and say, we have a problem, and get it solved. Much more efficient, and it forces people to work better. And they can cross-train. I don't know how many people. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
We've done a lot of stuff over there, and we've been agonizing over this for years. So we're still working with it. And anybody who'd like to respond to this at all?
I would just add, in your packets, that it came subsequent to the packet, there is a staff follow-up to the customer comment that was originally received by Director Hamill, to give you a little bit better background on the situation that day.
And I understand today we started with separate telephone lines for the cherry lift system.
Well, not separate telephone lines,
Well,
separate queues.
Separate queues, yeah.
So when a person calls, they press the service they would like, and they go into that queue. That began today.
Thank goodness. And we have a new telephone system out there too. So it's everything should, maybe it's going to get better, and we're going to keep working on it to try to make it work better.
Well, I'd like to add a comment as also a paratransit user, and that is that I have high hopes that the new telephone system will resolve the telephone access problems that paratransit users have been facing for the last 6 months or so. But I think the point that Mr. Stevenson brings up, that the February 7th, that was the big snow day, and you don't want to leave somebody, whether they're in a wheelchair or not, out on the corner in 6 inches of snow and saying, you know, if you can't get 3 blocks to where you scheduled yesterday a ride, then we can't help you. So the board needs to pay attention to this, and I'd like to see resolution or a plan for resolution within the next 90 days.
A resolution for what?
Well, for the continuing difficulties we've had in the customer service area with the paratransit authority. I know 90 days isn't a long time, but this is not the first time it's come up. We can't defer this to an indefinite future. We need to take a look at it.
If the board would like that, we'd be happy to do it.
Marcia?
Do we know what kind of staffing levels there were at the call center on that day?
I'm not sure
Steve?
offhand.
It was reasonably full. Most of the people scheduled that day didn't make it in.
You're gonna have to, yeah.
He said most of the people made it in that day.
Yeah, it was quite an extraordinary day. Lots of phone calls, mostly for cancellations.
Yeah, I mean, we had...
Get on the mic first.
Introduce yourself, Steve.
My name is Steve Onison. I'm the general manager for MV. I oversee not only the trip link, but also cherry lift carts and the red line service. Yeah, on Friday, there was over 650 rides scheduled for that day, and we ended up performing 88 people. So the majority of the time that the call center was busy taking cancellations for people that had waited to that day to see what the weather was going to be like.
Okay. So what do you think that we could ask of you to provide for us in the 90 days that we're talking about?
That'll be.
For the staff? Yeah, okay. Sue, what do you think?
I think what my question would be is what are you looking for, Director Hamill? I mean, are you looking for key performance indicators? Are you looking for standards? We
Yes.
can provide you with what you're looking for.
Right, standards and performance indicators. I'm not looking for an actual solution. I want an identification of what the problem is so that we can make a plan to solve it.
Perhaps see if the new system solves the problem to a certain degree, too.
That is possible, though the problem that Mr. Stevenson encountered was not a problem with the telephone system. A
one
telephone
wasn't,
system
you're right.
solution will not help him.
Yeah, you're right, that one wasn't.
Yeah, and on the 2 original calls that Mr. Stevenson had called in on, he had stated that he was at the 5900 address, and the call taker had said, okay, we'll get you there. It was only when he called in the 3rd time trying to get an estimate that for whatever reason the address hadn't been changed or indicated that he was still at the 5900 address and not the, I can't remember what it is, 5723 or something?
5670.
Okay, I was close. And certainly by the time, that time of the afternoon, because we had placed you on a will call once you were done with that because your later appointment had been canceled. And you called in a little after 2 o'clock, and by 2 o'clock, we really only had, I think, 10 or 11 buses on the road at that time because of all the cancellations, and we wanted to make sure all the buses that were out there had chains on. So, I mean, normally when you're on will call, we try to get there within an hour of when you call in, but again, with the weather and the limited amount of buses, it took a little longer to get.
That's not what upset me. What upset me was they told me that unless I could get from 15
Yeah, no, I understand. I listened to all your
Okay.
calls that day, and it was the last call that the call taker certainly was in error by telling you that, because we'd already,
I think a lot of this is addressed in our response to you.
Right.
And we'll follow up on putting together some information.
This is an unstable occurrence, but I'm going to ask you this. If you haven't fixed it in 5 years, why should we give you another 5 years to fix it?
well,
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Steve.
okay.
Okay, our next public comment person is Bill Stallman.
I'm Bill Stallman, and I'm an advocate for public compressed natural gas fueling in Oregon, and wanted to share with you a new development down in Medford with the Rogue Valley Transit. I was making a trip in my natural gas car, fueling at Salem Motor Pool, Eugene, the news station in Eugene, and near the water electric board down in that area of Highway 99. And when I fueled at Rogue Valley Transit last week, the attendant said that they are fueling semis coming up from California, operated by United Parcel Service. This was a conversation topic at the trucking conference in Portland last week. And it's clear that stations that deliver 10 gallons per minute, the big stations are what these trucks need. And the vision Chariot's had in putting in the system they have places you in an opportunity to help if this should come up. When I went down to California, I stopped in West Sacramento where the 130 CNG vehicles are, package cars, tractors for moving trailers around the yard. And I actually met the guy that dispatches these trucks. He says they have a 500-mile range. They drive up to Roseburg, trade trailers, come back, fuel in Medford, and then return to Sacramento and go down to Fontana, which is Southern California. They have no trouble going over the Siskiyous or huge distances. So naturally, UPS is doing this to save money. If we were to do a walkthrough of the state of Oregon, Rogue Valley has a 400 horsepower dual compressor station. The next biggest one is here in Corvallis, 300 horsepower. Then there's U at 200 horsepower. Then there's Northwest Natural in Sherwood at 400 horsepower. And then the biggest one in the state is Waste Management in Portland up by the airport at 500 horsepower. So you're in a league that this may come up, and I'd be happy to provide the contact information for that yard dispatcher down in Sacramento so you could introduce yourselves, and then later, should he have some interest in getting fuel up this way, he definitely cannot get it at the state motor pool. It's too small. Thank you very much. Oh, I think it works out to about $2,000 in fuel purchase a month minimum.
So you're proposing that we sell some of our natural gas to the community?
Well, you have the capacity to do so. I just want to alert you to who that guy is, and should he bring this up with you, that you have heard about it ahead of time, and it doesn't look like something new that fell off the apple cart, that it's already happening, and maybe the place to start would be to talk to Julie Brown at Road Valley Transit and see how that's working for them.
Any questions for Bill? Yes.
That might be a revenue source for us, because Rogue Valley is a
Like us.
is a public dispensary, and we could probably do the same thing if it didn't interfere with our regular bus operations.
I'm not sure we can use federal facilities to provide commercial stuff, but that'd be something to look at.
They are kind of like 2 blocks from your yard.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they're right over on Industrial Way by the...
Oh, yeah, I know what they said. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Marcia?
Do you know if this district UPS has CNG equipment like the Sacramento does? Because you said they came down from Sacramento to Roseburg and then back. Do you know if say UPS in this area has the CNG equipment that they need?
Not yet, and the only reason they don't is because the source of engines for these trucks at the conference, the production rate of the engines out of Wisconsin look like a parabola headed vertical. They were lucky to get 130 trucks. There's 250 down in Florida. The trucking industry is going to have 10% of its trucks by the year 2020 running on natural gas.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Okay.
interesting data.
Okay, the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
I'll move the consent calendar. It's minutes of our
Just minutes, yeah.
meetings.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay, got it. Action items. First action item is is action required for progress of the Courthouse Square remediation project.
Yes, thank you. The item that I'd like to talk about tonight is actually change order number 8. We are not prepared to bring change order number 8 to the board at this time. It was our plan to bring it on March 17th at the work session. However, because of some timeline issues, we need change order number 8 approved prior to March 17th. What our plan is, what I would like to do, in change order number 8 is a variety of different expenditures, the district's fiscal impact on all of that will come to about $65,000, with the highest line item being the purchase and installation of the security cameras for the transit mall. The substantial completion date is March 11th, and as a result of the snow a couple weeks ago, structural preservation has been delayed by a few days, and so their request as part of change order number 8 is to extend substantial completing, I think, by 5 days, which we're supportive of because it won't impact final completion date. What it does is allow some of the tasks that were needed to be done by the 11th to bleed into the following time. But that needs to be approved prior to March 11th. So what I would like to do is, with the board's approval, is allow for the board to authorize the executive committee the ability to approve change order number 8 prior to March 11th, and with a subsequent ratification at the March 17th board meeting. There is another option to authorize the approval of change order number 8 up to a dollar amount. I just don't have enough of the detail, I think, to answer any questions you may have about some of the line items. That it's a changing document. But that is another option available to you. I believe I've said that correctly. Yeah.
Marcia?
I'm sort of just a little confused. What you're saying is we need to authorize structural to have a substantially completed date a little bit later than what we had agreed to. Is that part of the change order?
That is the non-fiscal part of the change order. There's a variety of changes, change order changes for tenant improvement activity, like the security cameras. There's some installation of wireless access, stuff like that has been happening and has been approved by me because it's within my approval. But for transparency, we're trying to make sure both governing bodies approve everything in public or validate it. So that's why change order number 8 I want to bring to you, but I need approval prior to the 10th, and we won't have the final document. We don't have it ready to go tonight.
Could we not authorize the change in the dates and then wait until the 17th when you have the change order fiscals?
I don't believe so, because some of the tasks have to be done prior to the 11th or the 16th, whatever the date is.
Bob?
I'd like to move that the board authorize the executive committee to review and approve this matter and then bring it back for board approval at the March 17th meeting.
Second that.
That work?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on it?
That presumably means there won't be an early March board work session, is that right?
Well, if you recall, the board session has been moved from March 10th to March 17th because you'll be attending the APTA legislative conference.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I just wanted to clarify that if the executive committee is given authority to approve the change order, then the matter before the board at the board meeting would be to ratify that action.
I understand that.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
So our motion is accurate. Is that correct? Any other discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote then. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. And we'll set up some sort of a meeting as the time is appropriate.
Yes, I'm shooting for March 6th or 7th.
Okay.
Actually, the
Probably.
county is approving, or they're bringing the change order number 8 to the county on March 5th. So we'll do it.
We have to do it before the 8th,
Before
by
we
the
go out of-
7th, yeah,
go out of
before we
town.
leave. Okay. Next item is approval of the SDF Advisory Committee's recommendation for supplemental funding.
Yeah, Ted Stonecliffe, a long-range planning analyst, will present the report.
President Thompson and members of the board, I bring to you tonight a proposal to approve an allocation of special transportation funds from the Oregon legislature. Back in September, the Oregon legislature had a special session and approved $5 million statewide. And of that, about $450,000 was allocated to Marion and Polk counties. We took this issue to our Special Transportation Fund Advisory Committee last month, or this month, and I'm sorry, it was at the end of January. And they recommended that we apply for the allocation. in the following manner. It's at the end of my memo. We have 3 entities that STF dollars are distributed to currently: the City of Woodburn, City of Silverton, and Salem-Keizer Transit. City of Woodburn would receive, and this is in accord with the STF Advisory Committee's recommendation, $33,793. City of Silverton, $7,162, and Salem-Keizer Transit, $409,707. I could go over the items that the entities, the 2 cities and Salem-Keizer Transit intend to spend the money on, if you wish. Shall I do that? All right. The City of Woodburn has said that they would like to use the funds for operations of their Woodburn Transit Service. They're currently working with ODOT to find additional funds in order to maintain their existing service levels. In fact, recently they were forced to scale back their service from 14 hours a day to 12 hours per day. They are hoping to keep that 12-hour service. They're searching for additional dollars, and they could certainly use this for operations. So that's what they plan to do. The City of Silverton would like to purchase a new bus shelter for passengers at their senior center. And we heard at a Marion County rural meeting just on Tuesday that they may use it for dispatching software as well. The items that Salem-Keizer Transit could use the money for, it has not been determined or finalized at this point. A recommendation for that will be brought to you at a later date, but some of the preliminary ideas are tablets to replace the MDTs on board. Those are the mobile devices that enable the buses to be deviated from their fixed routes. Some automatic vehicle announcement systems, automatic passenger counters, electronic overhead signs, and in the memo there's some other ideas such as replacing seats for operators, new fare boxes, and I guess also we're looking into the possibility of purchasing a new bus vehicle for carts. Tonight we're asking for the approval of the application for the funds per the STF Advisory Committee's recommendation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
John?
This, basically, as I understand it, is the same. We've got a supplemental grant here, and this distribution is in the same proportions as the original grant.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's basically, I think, by population, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Marcia?
And the funds for Salem-Keizer are all on the cart service that we enable, but we do not fund out of our general fund. But I have a question on how is the city of Silverton for their transit shelter going to get by with only $7,100 for a transit shelter?
That will be up to them to determine what kind of shelter they can purchase for that amount of money.
Any other questions? Yes, Kate.
Yes, Ted, so you're new to the Salem-Keizer Transit and new to our first board meeting, correct?
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody when they're new. Why did you want to work for Salem-Keizer Transit?
My background is a diverse background in engineering and planning, but my love for transit really hit probably 5 years ago when I was working with C-Tran on the Columbia River Crossing project. And for the last couple of years before I came to the district, I really didn't I wasn't working on transit. I wasn't working on engineering. And I really wanted to go with my passion, and that's where it is. It's in transit service, and Chariots is a great organization, and I'm really happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you as a board. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Since we're talking about Ted, I would add he's a daily 1X rider and bicyclist, so he's walking the walk.
Oh, good, somebody coming from out of Salem into Salem.
There you go. Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Sure. I move to approve the application to the Oregon Department of Transportation Public Transit Division for supplemental STF dollars totaling $450,692 to Salem-Keizer Transit, the City of Woodburn, and the City of Silverton as recommended by the STF Advisory Committee.
Is there a second? Second from Bob. Okay, other discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, next item is Comprehensive Service Analysis Project Change Order Number 1.
Jared Chalk, our Planning and Technology Manager, will present the staff report.
Good evening, members of the board. I work at Salem-Keizer Transit because I think it's a great group of people. The matter before you this evening is in relation to the Comprehensive System Analysis Project, of which I think that everyone is quite aware. The question is if the board shall authorize the general manager to execute change order number 1, which is a slight expansion to the Comprehensive System Analysis Project in the amount of around $10,000. As you know, the board approved the CSA on September 26th and has been involved in that process as it has progressed. There are several subtasks which we have discussed with the contractor, Jarrett Walker and Associates, and the memo in front of you outlines what those tasks are. Briefly, task number 1 is an addendum to the existing conditions report, which details additional information about chairlift, specifically origins and destinations. It was information that we had hoped to have in the original existing conditions report, but due to some data inconsistencies on our end, we were unable to have that data ready in time. Task 2 is preparation of a public report on the stakeholder workshop. I believe that the entire board was present at the stakeholder workshop, and we had 29 members from the public attend that as well. It was very well attended, and I thought that workshop was a great success. We had a photographer there to help us document that event, and we would like to ask Jarrett Walker and Associates to put together a summary report suitable for publication that we can keep as a record of the event, but also an item that we can share with the public. And the third task is documentation of GIS methodologies. And this actually stems from some work that PSU graduate students are doing for us, but is more broad than that. They were asking questions about some of the GIS, meaning the map data in the existing conditions report. And we were working with the Jarrett Walker folks on it, and they suggested a subtask to provide additional explanation on how those reports were generated, but also some extra guidance in developing and using that map layer, which we believe will be beneficial not just for the PSU project, but for others going forward. And then lastly, we've also included some contingency into the change order, which is something that we ought to have had in the original. So the staff recommendation is to authorize the general manager to execute change order number 1 for the Comprehensive System Analysis Project in the amount of $10,098. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions? Yes, Brad.
So, will the contingency be available to the general manager to make a decision on? Or will that be brought back to the board if that's needed?
The intention of the contingency is to authorize the general manager to use that additional funding so that if, any one of these items, for instance, probably could have been included had we had the contingency to begin with, and we could have moved forward rapidly.
Okay. So you won't have to come back to ask what to use that contingency for?
Yeah, that's correct.
It'll be included in the report.
Right, and what I would do is, in my weekly report, if we utilize it, just to keep you informed.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
I move that the board approve change order number 1 for the comprehensive system analysis project in the amount of $10,098.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thanks, Jared. Next, we have information items, and all we have there is the board reassignments, and I don't think we need to talk about that. Everyone's approved, everyone's was briefed on what they were doing, and do we need to discuss that any? Okay, so that item is done. Now we can get into board subcommittee reports. And, oops, let me make my magic fingers work here a little bit. And they aren't magic. I should have been there first. Anyway, we have subcommittee reports. Do we have, did the Citizen Advisory Committee meet? No. No,
No.
okay. MWAC?
The Area Commission on, the Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation, which is MWAC, had a meeting scheduled, and the meeting was canceled due to the snow, but the public open house on the fiscal year 15 to 18, 2015-2018 State Transportation Improvement Program went ahead as scheduled because it was trying to get public comment, and we actually had somebody who came for public comment, and I attended knowing that we had public comment, and we've occasionally had some people, and so I wanted to make sure that I, who was a little bit easier to get to the meeting because I lived pretty close to where it was happening, there'd be some people from MWAC there rather than people driving in from Dallas and McMinnville and Newburgh and all those places. So that meeting was canceled. It's rescheduled for March, but the open house went forward.
Okay, next one is COG. We had no COG meeting other than the annual meeting. And the annual meeting itself was held in Grand Round, and it's an opportunity for the members of the Council of Government, Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, which is COG, to tell everybody about what they've done for over the year, and it's just kind of a celebration of their successes and things. And so that was the only meeting we had of MWV COG. Special Transportation Fund, you voted on one of the results of the February meeting? Was it February? End of January meeting, whatever it was, sometime back. Anyway, you voted tonight upon the result of that particular meeting, as well as we had a lot of discussion about several things, including carts and the report that we had during the 2 months that we've had on carts, routes, and their production and things like that. We went into that in that meeting, as well as the meeting that we went to in Dallas. And John attended the one in Silverton. I couldn't make that one. What happened in there or anything?
It was much the same as in Dallas. We received essentially the same reports from staff. Many of the attendees were the same. We had a woman from the health services in Silverton, and from the Silverton Trolley, and from the Woodburn were all there, along with a fellow from Catholic Community Services who
Okay.
was not there at Dallas. And the discussion was pretty much along the same lines. There's a lot of interest in carts and basically all that rural transportation business. I think the long-range planning task that was completed this fall stirred up a fair amount of interest in those areas. So I thought it was very productive.
And what we have is we have the regular STF committee, the Special Transportation Fund Committee, meets quarterly here in Salem. And then we each quarter we have outlying meetings in Polk and Marion County. So so we had all three of those here just recently. Okay, how about SCATS?
Oh, SCATS met last Tuesday.
Tell us what SCATS is.
SCATS is the Salem-Keizer Area Transportation Study, and basically they are the group that oversees the, I sent you a short, it wasn't much at this meeting. We are going to have a very full meeting at the next meeting on March 25th. But this week, we basically had mostly information items so that we're prepared to vote on issues in March. But a couple things came up. We did elect new officers, and Kathy Clark from the Keizer City Council is the new chair, or remains the chair, and I'm on there as the vice chair.
Congratulations.
And also, there was one action item which had three parts, which one part was tabled because it dealt with putting counters on the Union Street Bridge and the new Minto Park bridges, the pedestrian bridges, and for some reason it wasn't a road project, so some of the road advocates wanted to table it to see if there was any, what the real value was. But we are a little more, that group is a little more focused on roads than anything else, but at the same time, I think probably at the next meeting we'll pass that resolution. And the rest of it was going over the unified work plan, looking at the next STIP, which is the state, or the Transportation Improvement Plan, and also the obligation report, which is which funds have come from the federal government that have been obligated to projects that are in progress. And we also had a brief report on the Salem River crossing. As we all know, that the Salem alternative proposal is what the oversight team has selected.
Okay. And while you're at it, how about the river crossing? You just reported on it, basically.
Well, the river crossing, that was February 6th, and there was a very good article in Statesman Journal, which I sent you a link to. I sent the board members a link to that. We are one of the partners in that, and we sent in our
vote.
Our resolution showing that we support the project with the request that they look at some transit things. There was some heartburn again on part of some of the road enthusiasts that we don't want those dollars going to transit. We want to keep them focused on the bridge. There was quite a bit of public comment at that meeting opposed to the bridge, not too many people in favor of it, but that's because the people in favor of it were probably didn't come to the meeting, other than the ones that were serving on the committee. One of the comments that I found interesting was that funds are available to build this bridge with the property tax limitations. We can pass a bond measure for a $400 million bridge, but we can't pass a minimal tax levy to run our buses on Saturdays and Sundays. And that was one of the, I paraphrased it, but that was one of the public comments.
That's nice. How about OMPOC?
Okay, OMPOC. OMPOC is the Oregon Metropolitan Planning Organization Consortium, and we had a meeting on December 13th, a long time ago. In fact, we're almost up to the next one, which will be in April. A lot of that dealt with proposals for the 2015 legislative session, looking at different ways to pay for transit. I've got a multi-page report that I sent out to the board. There's a lot of concern about what's going to come out of Congress as far as a transportation funding bill with the Congress at this time, and they're hoping that they will maintain at least the same levels of funding, but we may unfortunately be surprised at what comes out of that. Also was discussion on developing a work plan for OMPOC. OMPOC is getting bigger now because we have brought in 2 more metropolitan planning organizations. Grants Pass is a new member, and also Albany, and Milton Freewater Walla Walla, which is an interstate MPO, has not joined our group yet, but we expect we'll have them there one of these days also. I could take a lot of time going through this, but we had reports from all the different MPOs on the different activities they're doing, and the next MPO, or the next OMPOC meeting, is going to be April 4th, I believe. It's a Friday. Yes, April 4th. So,
well, we really appreciate all you do for the transit.
That's a very
district
interesting
on that.
meeting.
I'm sure it is, yeah. And that's all over the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one of the big concerns there too is greenhouse gases. We're trying to work ways to maintain our lifestyle and reduce greenhouse gases.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, Board of Management issues, General Manager.
Oh,
Oh, wait a minute, we
Performance
skipped a
report.
couple, 3 of them here. Disregard. Finance report.
Jared Isaacson, our finance manager, will present the report.
Sorry, Jared.
That's okay. I wouldn't have my feelings hurt. Good evening, President Thompson and members of the board. I'm here to present the second quarter financial report that ended on December 31st, 2013. First, I have for you this evening the general fund, which is looking as if it would come under budget if trends stayed the same. It's sitting pretty good. Next, we have the capital project fund, which is tracking well. One of the items of note is that the materials and services appear high for halfway through the year, and this is due to the South Salem Transit Center as well as the business intelligence projects experiencing more materials and services than had anticipated in the beginning of the project. If this trend does continue, we will bring a budget amendment for your review and approval. Next, we have the Special Transportation Fund, which, like the general fund, is tracking well and appears that it too will come under budget. I have a summary of the capital projects that, and one of the items of note is the business intelligence project, which is at 159% of this year's budget amount. Now, this is due to timing of the expenses and not a change in the scope of the project. During the budget process last year, we had anticipated that the project would have been closer to completion at the end of the year. And it turned out that it didn't happen that way, and these expenses have spilled over into the next year. Next, I have for you a small summary of the Courthouse Square remediation project. At this point, not today, but as of December 31, the amount of expenses was at about 79% of the total revenues anticipated to be spent on the project. With that, is there a short summary of your financial report for the second quarter? Is there any questions?
John.
And just a new guy kind of question, looking at the general fund revenue, property taxes.
Yes.
I presume that represents the full amount of property taxes that we are going to be receiving for this fiscal year? That basically there was like a 4% shortfall from what was anticipated?
Not quite. We get property taxes come in each month. Some months more than others. November, of course, is our highest month. where we get roughly 90 to 95% of our property taxes for the year. We'll get another large portion with each of the quarterly payment times that allow people to get a discount.
Okay.
So we still will receive more property taxes throughout the year.
Okay, good enough.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
And I'm going to follow the agenda here now. How about the rideshare report, Roxanne?
Correct. Roxanne Rolls will present the report.
Good evening, President Thompson and members of the board. This is the second quarter report for the Chariots Rideshare program. I think you all remember I've talked a lot about Drive Less Connect, and it's the database that we use. We've been using it a little over 2 years now, tracking information about people that are looking for carpool and vanpool matches, as well as bicycling buddies. And the statistics for the second quarter, total number of users that are in our region was 2,697 people. I think I've told you that every 90 days, people will drop into an inactive status if they have not gone into their account and logged in. So as people come in, people go out. However, that quarter was the quarter that we had the Drive Less Challenge. So we actually had 728 new users that created new accounts in the second quarter. A typical quarter would be around 200 people. So we had a significant amount of folks signed up. They were incented to do so. This was a statewide campaign, and I'll share the results of that campaign, our regional results, in just a moment. And as I've talked about the number of ride match searches that have happened, this is cumulative for the last 2.5 years. And then ride match requests that are sent, those are people that actually say, oh, here's a match. Let me send that person an anonymous email and see if we can talk and work out a way to carpool together. And as I said, the Drive Less Challenge, it was 12 days. The intent was to reduce 500,000 vehicle miles traveled statewide. Oh, see, I jumped ahead. And of course, the idea was to increase the number of registered users, which clearly we did. So we had over 600 new Drive Less Connect registrants. This is just in our region, so that's people that live in Polk, Marion, or Yamhill County. They logged almost 170,000 fewer miles just in those 12 days. You can see the carbon that they reduced and the amount of money in gasoline that they saved just in those 12 days. As I've talked about, we do many projects, so this is looking ahead, although we got our first contest posters returned to us today from the teachers. So we run a student poster contest. It's open to any middle or high school student in Polk, Barron, or Yamhill County. We have 22 schools participating this year. It's the most we've ever had. We've given out about 3,000 sheets of poster paper to the students, so we're hoping to get 300 or 400 posters to choose from. We have 2 judging categories this year for middle school students and for high school students, and so I think we're going to have a tremendous amount of exciting artwork. The theme we gave them this year was what moves you, and we operated on the assumption that kids would say carpooling or bicycling, and the responses we're getting are wonderful. Music moves me, and hope moves me. So it's pretty exciting, and I love the posters we've gotten so far. So that'll be fun to see what we get out of it. Other projects, as the Be Safe, Be Seen campaign, ODOT gave us a number of products, including blinky lights, and they asked us to distribute these. We had some specific lights for skateboarders. We had bicycle lights that we were given. We distributed the blinky lights through our transit operators and through our customer service. In 3 days, we distributed 2,300 of these little guys. So we're very happy that our operators are so willing to do that. And it's a great outreach for us to do. We also donated a number of high-end bicycle lights that we were given by ODOT. We donated those to a local organization that takes used bikes, refurbishes them, and then they find individuals that are needing bicycles, and the individuals work volunteer hours to earn the bicycle. So we gave them some bike lights. So those folks now have bike lights on the front of their bikes. Some other projects we're working on, in fact, we just finished today our last in-service training. The rideshare program goes to our operator training, and we teach our transit operators about what we do. And today was the last day for that. Obviously, we completed the 2013 Drive Less Challenge. We are working on a 2014 statewide Drive Less Challenge. We are partnering with Lane Transit District and the Cascades West Council of Governments to do a carpool formation challenge. We've never done just specifically a challenge to try to form carpools in our region. We're calling it Carpalooza. So that should be an awful lot of fun, and we'll be doing that next year around this time. And then we are working on a rideshare program strategic plan. I had put together a request for a proposal to find a consultant to help the rideshare program move out of our work plan mode, which is what I do every year. I create a work plan. We go through the COG. They approve it. ODOT approves it. But I've never been able to really take the time to look 5 years down the road and 10 years down the road, and where do we want rideshare, where do we want transportation options to be in our community in 5 or 10 years? So we do have a consultant on board. We don't have everything under contract yet, so I can't talk about who it is, but we're very excited. And we'll be bringing in board members, staff, the Council of Governments, ODOT. So we've got all kinds of folks that are really excited about helping us decide our future. That's my report. Oh, look, I've got first quarter report now. Well, I'm going backwards.
Okay, questions, Marcia?
In my other life, I was in a meeting, and the forecaster for ODOT was talking about different modes of travel and with ages. Do we have any demographic statistics in our rideshare program so we know who's coming in, et cetera?
We don't track by age specifically within the database, but it's interesting that you had mentioned that. The rideshare assistant, Kiki Doman, is going through a leadership training now with the Association for Commuter Transportation, and her project this year is on the impact of the millennials and what they're calling the new silent generation, which are the kids born after the year 2000, what their impact will be on transportation demand management. So we will be doing some work figuring out what the generations are, who is using the rideshare service. So we will get that.
Because I think it would be really helpful if you're looking strategically down the line to do it, I think. And just remembering what Mr. Penalosa said was it's not a tsunami because tsunamis are not predictable.
Correct.
Sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. Our plan is definitely out of the strategic plan to see where we are now, what we are doing, and then what we can do, and that will include serving the sort of 8 to 80, as Gil Penalosa had said. We want to serve children as well as serving our seniors.
John.
Okay, on your information regarding the Drive Less Challenge, there was one thing that really stood out to me, and that was that you logged, our rideshare users logged almost 170,000 fewer miles and reduced the pounds of carbon dioxide released by over 101,000. That suggests that we put in over a half a pound of carbon dioxide per mile if we're driving single occupancy vehicles. Is that right?
I will defer mathematically to the database.
Okay.
And so I'd be happy to get information on how those numbers are calculated, since I do draw it out of the statewide database. And I don't have the answer to that, so I will find out.
Yeah, because it seems like a half a pound a mile is a lot, but it could just be because I don't know a thing about it, so.
I will find out for you.
Okay, thank you.
That does seem like a lot. Anyone else? Thanks, Roxanne.
Thank you.
Now we'll follow the agenda again and go on to board and management issues. And General Manager.
I'll put more detail in my weekly report tomorrow, But in case you haven't heard, earlier this week, President Obama outlined a 4-year, $302 billion proposal for the reauthorization of the transportation program. About $72 billion of that is for transit, which is about a 70% increase from the previous bill. Although you have to remember the previous bill was only 2 years, and this is a 4-year proposal. He's proposing to cover the costs with about $150 billion from overhauling corporate taxes, which covers this bill but doesn't address the real question of the transportation bill, which is how to fund transportation bill on a long-term basis without, as we know, the gas tax now is a diminishing resource. It looks like this proposal for the corporate taxes is to replace a general fund infusion. What this really does is set up a great debate in the House and Senate on transportation. The chairman of the House T&I committee has announced he's ready to shortly unveil his package, and Senator Boxer said she hopes to have her proposal out in April. The good news of all that really is that the debate begins fairly soon, which hopefully will mean we'll have a new bill not too far after this one expires, which is this coming September 30th. Historically, it's taken several years for the new bill to get passed, and we go by continuing resolutions, which really impacts the ability to do some long-term planning. So I'm hopeful that this gets the debate going. I'm sure we'll hear a lot about it in 2 weeks at the APTA Legislative Conference. But I have more detail that I've received. I'll put that in my weekly report for you tomorrow. And just a reminder for those attending the Mid-Valley Green Awards, it's this Saturday at 5 o'clock. The district is a nominee and finalist in the large employer category for that awards program for its sustainability programs to include Keizer Transit Center. So we're hopeful to continue the good news of what we heard today in that also. And then I would just pass along my thanks to the board members who were able to attend the Gil Penalosa presentation. I think it was a great community, helped start a great community discussion, which I'm hoping to continue on once we move back into Courthouse Square, to really advance the discussion about what transit should look like to improve the livability of this community. And once we get that, well, then let's have that discussion on how this community is going to pay for that expectation. So thanks for attending. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thoroughly.
That concludes my report.
Thanks, Alan. Well, we had done quite a bit of, all of us have been pretty busy this last month and a half, 2 months. Actually, it's more than that, isn't it? Anyway, I did the video shoot that you saw. You saw my picture briefly on there. I'm glad it wasn't on there more than it was. And the video shoot for the SDAO for the award program. And I was supposed to go to Seaside to do that, but the snow kept me from doing that. We also went to Portland and received an award from the Women's Transportation Seminar. And Ted was the MC up there, and Ted was the one that presented I guess you were the one that presented the awards, or I shook your hand, I think, to get the award. So that's his former life. And I guess you're still kind of involved in that?
Yes, I am. I'm a member of the board.
Yes, great. Thank you. Also, we toured Courthouse Square again, and that's, I guess, the last time we'll tour it until we get in there.
Until April 2nd.
Yeah, April 2nd. Attended a couple of Chamber Policy Committee meetings, and kind of downers sometimes because they talked about assessing a stormwater tax on me out in the county. That was the last one we had, and that was not good. We did have a retreat in January, and it was done by the people that are doing our comprehensive service analysis. And you know, I've been on the board almost 15 years, and I think this was probably the most productive and maybe the best retreat that we've had. And we actually got into looking at resources and how to allocate them, and really kind of opened our eyes in some ways. And I think that overall, when this report comes out and we start looking at it and making some decisions based on it, I think we're going to come up with maybe some changes to our transit system that will be very productive. And I want to thank Alan and Sadie and Steve and whoever else had a hand in making that happen, because that was very, very, very productive. Attended 2 chamber lunches. The first one was a cardiologist out of Portland telling me I should lose weight. Well, he didn't do that, but anyway, that's what his theme was. The other one was Jerry Frank stood in for Ron Wyden, who was busy on the Hill, I guess. And Jerry Frank is always very interesting to hear. And he had a lot of really interesting pictures up there of the people that he met while he was Senator Hatfield's administrative person, and very interesting. We attended 2 work sessions and the STF meetings I mentioned earlier. And let's see, what else did we do? Council of Governments annual meeting, I mentioned that. Several of us attended a town hall meeting with Kurt Schrader, and each of us had an opportunity to brief him on some of the things that we think that would be helpful for him to help us with in Washington. And several of us attended the Gil Penalosa presentation at Willamette, and that was absolutely wonderful. We had probably 100 or better than 100. About 125 people from the town come and listen to this presentation, and they were a 2-hour presentation, and there wasn't hardly a sound in the room, and people were wanting more, I think, but they didn't get it because we made it quick. Anyway, his presentation is set to his theme is to promote walking and bicycling as activities in urban parks, trails, and other public spaces as great places for all. And he just absolutely outstanding. We saw him at the APTA General regular meeting last summer, and it was that's how Alan was able to hook him into coming out here. So very beneficial to the community. And that's me. And why don't we start with maybe Brad today?
So let's see. I've got a few notes of different things that I did. I don't know if I had mentioned, but back in December, since our last meeting, there was a little bit of pushback against keeping the bus route in Gebser from a few vocal neighbors, but otherwise there was support from the rest. That was interesting, and I could tell you more about that later if you are interested in knowing how that all happened. It was great to be able to ride on the bus for the holiday parade through Keizer, and the bus looked great, so thank you to all the staff who put that together, both to enjoy the ambiance inside as well as how it looked on the outside. I attended the Keizer City Council meeting to inform them of the decision about the bus route through the Gebser neighborhood. If you go look at the December 16th City Council meeting, you'll see my discussion, which was about 10-15 minutes or so, reading my statement that I submitted to them, which I think I gave you all copies of, and answering a few questions. One of the things that I mentioned as part of my letter was the potential of smaller buses being my vision, not the board's necessarily, but something that I would like to see on that route, pending, of course, this comprehensive service analysis. And that seemed very interesting, especially to Mayor Christopher, and I had to emphasize that that's not a done deal, because it seemed like she was trying to assume that it was, so that was kind of interesting, trying to explain that. There were also some articles in the paper about it. I think it all turned out well. I haven't had much pushback since kind of the initial neighbors. Also, I attended the Keizer First Citizens Award banquet as a nominee. One of my neighbors, well, I found out later who it was, a fellow community member who, so it was an honor to be there as a nominee, and it was enjoyable to celebrate volunteerism in Keizer, which is alive and well. And I've been attending the GUPSR PTC meetings and trying to build up the network there. Have been talking with Hirsch Sangster about different bike and ped things that we can be doing in the Keizer area. Was contacted by Willamette Weekly, Salem Weekly, I should say, asking about bicycle advocacy. So I gave them a statement. We'll see if that is in their green edition of their paper. So if you see it, if you see the green edition, you'll probably find me in there. I've been attending the Keizer Chamber luncheons on behalf of the Transit District, which has been a really good way to network with those that are there. And Mayor Christopher is not going to be running for mayor again, but Kathy Clark has declared her intention to run, and she was the one who recommended I apply for the vacancy on the board, so I have a pretty good relationship with her, and I think would be a strong friend of the district. And also, she's been coming to various events that we've had and understands the vision, and I've been sharing some of my vision with her as well. And one of the things that I would like to add too is that with Gil Penalosa coming and Jarrett Walker doing our comprehensive service analysis, for me, I feel a lot more clarity as to where the transit district's going and how that can benefit Keizer in particular. And I'm definitely very excited and appreciative of Alan and the transit district for the vision and for bringing these experts in and involving the community in a way that all the people that I've been talking with are excited by the energy. I was also talking with some staff down in Lane County, and they said the same sorts of things. They felt the energy from Gil Penalosa and feel like things are starting to happen. And I think here as well, there's a pent-up desire on a lot of people's, for a lot of those that were at the meeting, that they are hoping that things will start to happen. And I do have some things that I'm hoping, especially the idea of the permanent routes, that we can partner with the cities and emphasize some permanent transit routes and try to start doing more transit-oriented development, pedestrian, potentially bicycle improvements in those areas, and start to move towards at least those specific areas being more permanent. So I've been really excited about all of that movement and found that that's something that I've gravitated towards. So I think that covers all the things that I've been doing. And so again, I just want to say that thank you for the vision that's moving in that direction.
Thank you. Kate?
I was going to say, don't worry about your taxes, Jerry. We can always annex you to the city.
The street in front of my house is the city.
I think we did have one of the best retreat of all the retreats since I've been on transit board, without a doubt. I really felt it was great. It was good to see it shared with the community, with the follow-up meeting and how they responded. And I got a lot of emails and conversations going. People agreed it just was so to the point to get you to understand why routes are done the way they're done. So, and that it is hard choices in the end sometimes. So that I just want to say again, that was a great format that you picked. So we did attend COG, and if you didn't go to the event, you should get on and check out the city of Willamina, because the mayor did a selfie. He's very young and energetic, and he did a rap, which was fantastic. So it's good to see some very young people out there, and it was fun. So there was an article in the Statesman Journal about the railroad bridge on Portland Road. And Steve Dickey gave a comment as a bike rider as to the issues with people using that as a bathroom. So since then, the city has found out that the contracts say they're responsible for everything except for the deck. So they're looking into replacement, putting it on a federal replacement list and other options and a path in the meantime so they can close it off. So that was good advocacy. But also the Del Webb office for Salem-Keizer Transit is in the North Gateway Urban Renewal area, and they're looking for business reps, so they'd like to know if you have somebody from Salem-Keizer Transit who would join the board. And because you are members of that area, you also qualify for the toolbox features, which means if you're going to upgrade your business, you get a really low-cost loan. But also, it's always good if we have somebody officially from transit to look at projects, because there's going to be discussions about approximately $22 million that'll be spent, and how best to spend that on redevelopment. So I want to make sure somebody from transit is there as the discussions start moving forward. I'd also, and you can get a application on their website, or I can email you the link if you don't have it. Also, there's, for our work session coming up March 17th, I'd just like to put an item on there for to look at Route 14 for the Kroc Center. Someone's suggested that if we connect that to the Keizer Transit Center, that could potentially bring up the ridership. And the way it's done right now, the ridership's low, and maybe a route that we would eliminate. So I just want to suggest that for the work session. Also, because I spend a lot of time, like I keep saying, pairing people to jobs. CARTS is really frustrating in that I didn't realize this till I tried to get somebody to connect with CARTS. There's no addresses on the stops, so, and there's no street signs. So when we're in Staten, it says First and Fur. Well, if you have GPS like I do in my car, First and Fur doesn't get you anywhere. There's no physical address. Even if it would have said 101 First, I probably would have been ahead of the game. So I had to call Linda, and she called Jean, and they explained to me that First and Fur is across from the Safeway in Staten. I said, okay, I can find that. And then there was a park, but there was no address. So if you don't know Staten, you can't find them, and they again don't have signs. So I just wanted people to know when you're using it, it can be frustrating. But the good news is, if you live in Salem and use the 1X, it's a great connection. And so I was able to pair two people to the Xerox site this month directly there. And if they have the disability rate, it's $37.50 to get the 1X. And once you get to Wilsonville, it's free. So that was some really great connecting. So I was glad to see that worked out.
You know, we bought a whole bunch of CART signs a few years ago. Where did they go if they're not up?
They're up now.
Oh, okay.
Are you sure? Because this was 2 weeks ago, or a week ago. There wasn't a sign.
Actually, they're not all up. There's a few of them that we had to arrange a contractor to go out and permit to get them up.
Oh,
Yeah, we had trouble with each of the cities because they all had their own rules and regulations about, well, you know.
Correct.
Anyway, how about Marcia?
Okay, I'm only going to do the February things, because I thought some of those things were in January. The area commission, as I said before, was canceled, but at the open house, we did have a member of the public who came and who had a presentation to talk about, because he'd had an idea about something that related to making things a little bit better when we have lots of rain. I attended the work session, a SCAN Neighborhood Association meeting, and the Gail Penalosa presentation, which I thought was outstanding. And the day following the Penalosa presentation, the Oregon Transportation Commission had invited our area commission, as many members of the commission who wanted to come and talk. There's a renewal of the charter for the area commissions on a regular basis, and normally they just have the chair and the vice chair attend. But the Oregon Transportation Commission asked for any and all who wanted to come and have a chat with them, and so we had an hour on their agenda to discuss how our area commission worked, what sorts of things we were doing, what sorts of things were helpful. I got a little bit of an opportunity to talk about the need for planning ahead for not the tsunami, but knowing what's happening with the numbers of people coming and how it relates to transit, and how transit funding is very difficult and to do under the current situation, just to remind them, which they, of course, do not need any reminding on. And Kathy Clark was there, which is always good because she always says a good word for transit. And she noted that a lot of the Keizer transportation system plan is retrofitting the areas of Keizer with sidewalks and bike things because of the way that Keizer was developed. So that sort of also was related to Penalo's. And I did tell them that we had had over 100 people attend the presentation the night before, and that people stayed for 2 hours. So, and we're very interested in the sort of 8 to 80 concept. So I tried to get my little soapbox going when I could.
Thanks, Marcia. Bob, I think you pretty well covered most everything you did.
Well, I did a lot of that I reported on already.
Yeah.
Had some meetings canceled. I did the Association of Oregon Rail and Transit Advocates. We did a conference call because it was right in the middle of that fun, snowy weekend. I think all of us were impressed by both the work session, the public workshop that we had with the transit planning, and also the Gil Penalosa presentation that in some cases, for most of us, he was singing to the choir, but if you visited the European cities and cities that have these types of systems, their standard of living is exceeding ours now because they have dealt with a lot of the problems that we haven't dealt with. And I feel I'm very happy to hear comments from this board that we're going to be looking at ways that we can improve the quality of life here in Salem with our transit services. And I think that's a real goal that we will be working on in the next few months. So I'm happy about that. I also, I think I've covered almost everything. I have a big list of things I did this month, so I will, it's getting late, so I'll shut up.
Okay. And John.
All righty. Yeah, virtually everything I've done during the last 2 months has already been talked about at considerable length. I do have 4 items that I want to talk about a little bit. As one of the new guys on the board, I have found 3 of the things that we have done recently to be valuable and interesting and energizing, and I'm grateful that they've all come to pass. And the first, of course, is the comprehensive system analysis.
John, would you pull your microphone?
Oh, sorry. The comprehensive system analysis and the associated community workshop. I thought those were terrific and stimulating events, and that everybody who participated came out a better person, and more people should have. That it was that Jarrett Wilson was a terrific hire on the part of the board, and Alan's to be congratulated and complimented on that. Second is that the the meetings I've been going to with the Special Transportation Fund, another revelation and stimulation. As a Salem guy, I'd never thought about the troubles that our outlying areas confront with transportation and getting older and disabled and folks who just don't have the money for keeping cars running, what they do. So this has been a revelation to me and stimulating. And then, of course, the last one was the talk by Gil Penalosa. Again, very stimulating, and it may be that these 3 things are sort of self-selecting, but it seems to me that community-wide there is more flexibility this year on transit and transit-related things than has been the case in the past. So it seems, well, if only we had some money, we could we could do some good. The last topic is that I think the community as a whole is showing interest in Salem's transit problems and challenges. that when people ask what I've been up to, I've got plenty to tell them, and they seem interested, engaged, and willing to listen, especially in the decisions that the transit district has to make regarding coverage as opposed to ridership, as opposed to efficiency, and it seems to me that they are aware that there are trade-offs. If there's no money, if we want Saturday service, we're going to have to cut something else, and they seem to be amenable to the idea of cutting back on the weekly basis in order to get that weekend service, which is I think something that would be good for the district. So, yeah, let's move on. We got a future ahead of us.
Thanks, John. Thanks, all. And before we close tonight, we all wish Linda happy birthday tomorrow. We don't want to sing on television, though. That would probably break everything, all the television monitors and everything. Anyway, anything else to come before the board? Hearing none. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
We're very concerned about our TV ratings. It's true.